you've got to be willing to put in the work and be open to explore that. As a kid, you just want to explore and tinker with everything. And that's where you've got to keep going throughout your career. Otherwise, you'll get stagnant and it won't be fun. And once it's not fun, what's the point?
Exactly. If you want to stay in this business, whether you're in-house or in the field, you just have to be open and never say no. You never know what the next opportunity is going to bring you.
Land insights, market trends, industry experts. Welcome to the Land Department Podcast, the state of land and energy as we see it.
Brett, I think this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. It's always fun when you see something kind of cool happening by a landman for landmen. And it's Steve Virant. You wrote a children's book, well, a baby's book at this point.
I did.
On how to be a landman or what's a landman. And I saw it pop up the other day and I said, I got to get Steve on here and kind of get the story behind this book and hopefully highlight your book and get it out there in front of as many people as possible. So thanks for joining us, Steve.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Like I said, when I saw your note, I was giddy that, hearing about it. I was like, all right, like this is kind of a big deal. And I did not do, my goal was just to get a book for my daughter. The whole origin came from my daughter and being able to tell her what I did. So when I got the proof and I got kind of to the finish line, it came on like a Tuesday night and my wife had a dinner plan and I showed her the book and I said, does this look good? She said, yeah, it looks good. And I started sending it out to all my friends before I had a plan. And then I put it on LinkedIn and I was like, all right, here we're live, and put it on Instagram. Any social platform that I was a part of, I threw it out there and I was like, what do I do next? Like, and people were excited and they're like, this is awesome. I'm like, you haven't read it yet. It could be terrible. Like,
Yeah.
Everyone who's read it so far is friends or family, and they might just be nice. I haven't gotten honest feedback yet. So it was nerve-wracking, but exciting.
That's the same kind of feedback we get on this podcast. It's like we got 18 followers and it's our moms and grandmas. They tell us it works, but who knows?
Yeah. As long as they're nice in the comment section, that's the name of the game, right?
Yeah. Yes, and if they're not, we'll just delete the bad stuff.
Yeah. Perfect.
Well, cool.
So what was the hardest part about writing this children's book? Like that's a different, I don't even know where I'd start.
Illustrating was the hardest part.
Did you do all the illustrations?
I did.
Wow.
So my daughter is 2.5. I wrote this probably in 30 minutes after I've been brainstorming on the idea. But I wrote it fairly quickly and then adjusted over time. But at first I tried to find an artist and I couldn't find one to save my life. Finally, I got in touch with somebody, but she was not able to finish the project. We probably got like 70% done, and then she just scrapped it entirely. And that was the year that we'd been working together. And then probably spent another 9 months trying to get something put together and could never find anybody. I reached out to schools, people I know who have written books, like reached out to their illustrators and no one wanted to touch it. And then finally I found out through my aunt that a friend of hers had written a book and used AI. And so I reached out to him and said, hey, how did you do this? And he told me the software. And I probably did the illustrations after that in 2 weekends, just during nap times or when my daughter went to bed. Purely on the side and got it kind of how I wanted it, and then went to Amazon, and Amazon can move anything, so they had a program to bind it and all that. So definitely the illustrations was the toughest part because I'm not that talented to draw those pictures, and then figuring out how to tell a computer what oil and gas is and to draw it.
Oh God. Telling a person's hard enough, much less telling an artificial intelligence that's only 9 months old.
Exactly. Yeah. The AI piece was kind of interesting. On one of the pictures, it's a geologist, and I said, do a watercolor illustration for a children's book of a female geologist looking at a stratigraphic map, and it pulls everything up. And I predominantly worked the Eagle Ford in South Texas, so I said, I switched it and said of Texas, stratigraphic map of Texas. and AI just kicks out basically the same image, but with all the geologists wearing cowboy hats.
You should have kept that illustration.
I have it in the list. It just didn't make the book. It didn't quite go with the theme.
Maybe
yeah,
that'll be
it's
in
kind of funny
addition
keeping
two. That'll be an addition two.
Yeah, my blooper reel.
Yes, blooper reel.
So from when you
An adult's guide to being a petroleum man.
Well,
That's
yeah,
what you should do.
That's what my wife, after she read it, she goes, I actually finally know what you do from a day-to-day basis. She's like, this is great. She's like, very helpful.
Well, it's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing is like, literally last weekend, I was with some people and, working on stuff. And what do you do? And I was like, oh God, okay. Where do I even start? Like the elevator pitch on what a landman does. It's going to take a minute. And then I have to give definitions along the way. So, sometimes I should just carry a dozen of these books and just hand it to them and save myself the conversation.
Yeah.
There you go.
Buy as many as you can. I'd love that.
So
it's probably the onboarding experience for your employees. That, hey, here's your book to share with your family and friends now that you're a landman.
Well, that's, there are a lot of our drillers and other engineers and geologists, they kind of read it and they're like, this is helpful for me too. Like, forget my kids. I'm going to read this.
Of course, that's what they wanted, and that fits in with their perception of landmen. Oh, your basic children's book. This is how they write.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy. It's easy.
Yeah, these stupid landmen. So how long did the process take? You mentioned you had some complications with your graphics and things like that. So from the time you wrote the book to publication, what was that timeline?
Probably right at 2 years for the timeline. And it all started when my daughter was born. I was trying to help out with my wife in between the feedings. And so there was a stretch of probably 2 months where my daughter would either be up from 1 to 4 or 4 to 7. And she wouldn't go back to sleep no matter what. And so it just meant that I was walking around, kind of bumping her, trying to, shushing her, trying to get her to fall asleep. And so I spent probably 2 months in the incubator phase thinking of the idea, because I was doing circles in the bedroom and I'd walk past the books that we had. And I was like, I should write one of these. And I was like, what should I write? And so I was like, I'll pick one I know. So kind of that was easy, did that quick. And then the illustrations was the longest and hardest part. Worked with an illustrator for about a year. Then she called it quits. And then sat stagnant for 6 to 9 months before I found AI, and then did AI in 2 weeks. And then you kind of mess with had it ready, but afraid to publish, and then finally pulled the trigger on publishing. And so, probably right at 2 years. And each piece was unique and it had its own challenges, but it was a long process.
Yeah. What AI did you use?
It's called Midjourney. So it's through that's like what the picture version of it is. The actual bot that I used was it's called Discord, and it seemed clunky at first, and it's probably just because I don't understand that world very well. But once I got rolling on it, you could crank out anything, and it was pretty clever and pretty slick. I was trying to do show pictures of fracking, and I couldn't get it to draw what I wanted it to. So I actually uploaded a picture and said, describe this for me. And then when it would just it gave me the descriptions, like, okay, now take that and then draw it yourself.
So you had to figure out its translation.
Exactly. Yeah. I tried to reverse engineer my way into pictures. And for the most part, it worked. The fracking was the only thing that I couldn't get it to figure out. It struggled with that one, but everything else, just after a few iterations of changing what your prompts were, it got us a finished product, and it was, everyone seems to like it. So I think it did a good job.
So we've heard about the reception from, other people in the industry and family and friends, but what about the real target audience and your daughter? How has she received this?
She loves it. That's, number one. She, the best part about that is, we'll be flipping through it, and she'll get to the pump jacks and she'll go, this is where mama, dada, and then our whole family's on oil and gas. Gigi, Pops, Uncle Chris, Uncle Bubba, and then she always throws our dog. She always throws our dog Royal in there, so we all work on pump jacks. So she likes it,
Oh,
and
nice.
that's been the fun part is her, and then all my friends have, not all, but most of my friends have kids, and they're sending me pictures of their kids reading it, and I was like, this is cool to see somebody else enjoying something that I've really enjoyed kind of in the process, and I think Emma likes it, so it's been unique. I think the kids like it because some of the pictures are they've got cranes and drilling rigs and pump jack units.
All the things, yeah.
Something that kids can kind of understand and like. So yeah, I think the target audience approves, but they don't write reviews. So I'm just going to assume that I'm right.
That's right. So you said your daughter's name's Emma?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
so is that her? Did you train the AI to make the little girl in the picture? I think it's at the front of the book.
I use some of the descriptors of us. I said a girl with blonde hair and reading to her dad. That guy's a lot more handsome than me, but so
it looks like Jake Gyllenhaal.
They did
Oh, wow.
They did a good job.
They did.
But yeah, so I tried to use some descriptors, but I didn't upload any pictures in there, and I'm probably overprotective, and I don't want her out on the internet or
The
the
cartoon,
world.
the watercolor
Be,
version.
so,
A smart decision.
yeah.
So since you've recently published this book, has Taylor Sheridan reached out to you about this new Landman series to be a writer on it?
Yeah, so this is actually I plugged this. This is a must read before you watch this show to get the base. Work.
Yeah, you got to start there because otherwise you're just a person who blows up pump jacks and assassinates people, all for the dollar.
Yeah, our HES group would not approve of what his message of a Landman is. I got several plugs of people sending me the trailer as soon as it came out. And
oh God, yeah.
Me being shameless, I was like, before you watch this, read this, and you put a link to Amazon. I don't think it did anything, but made me chuckle.
It's gonna catch on.
Man.
Well, that's been the big stink on the social media recently in all the Landman circles is the portrayal of the Landman.
Yeah. It's based off of a podcast, the Boomtown, right? So it would have been so much more appropriate to call it Boomtown versus Landman because he's like, the land work is easy. He's like, it's everything after that's difficult. And then he goes into the taking names and kicking butt. So it's kind of like, could have just called it something different for us.
And we don't always get to do that cool stuff either. I mean, we're just over here Landman,
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they're not going to show, a huge spreadsheet with 5,000 wells, trying to manipulate working interest in NRI so you can send it to your planers and book reserves properly.
It's not going to show me smashing my head on the desk trying to get to the 12th decimal place, 1.00000. Not going to happen there.
No, we're going to end up on the cutting room floor, unfortunately.
Yeah, who wants to see a Landman?
I saw
Who wants to see a Landman in a courthouse almost falling asleep after ate too big of a lunch?
Exactly. The gas station burritos hitting hard.
I gotta step
Can't stay
outside.
awake.
I saw someone tweet the sequel is going to be Division Order Analyst. Just there's just so many different things you could do with it.
Just smoking people with the calculator.
Yeah. I've got a box full of land compasses that I could use as like ninja stars. Just off some people with it.
There you go.
They're worthless now anyway. Who uses those? I don't think a Landman even knows. Today's Landman doesn't know where the land compass is for sure.
Yeah.
The new ones. The new ones.
It's a computer's your land compass.
That's right. Well, AI is now. I don't even use my computer.
Yeah.
I just talk to my phone and it does my job for me. Great.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Who needs a Landman anymore?
So, Steve, I see behind you that Alaska license plate. Tell us about your Alaska journey.
So I started my career in Alaska when I was an intern with Marathon. My mentor, they asked him if he wanted to go to Alaska. They had a position open, and he was telling me that he didn't want to go. And I mentioned, I was like, I don't have the 3 to 5 years experience that they're looking for, but I would love that opportunity. He had a baseball game with the lane manager of Alaska that night and told him that I'm not going to go, but Steve will. And next day he's in my office and says, hey, he's like, are you really willing to go? And I said, yeah, I think so. And so they flew me out, let me take a look at the office, kind of see what it was about. And I said, yes. And it was one of the best things I've done. It was a cool opportunity. I got to work on some projects that I probably wouldn't have gotten to work on at all. I had no business working on the projects that I did, but I was the best. I was the only option they had, so they let me work on it, and they trusted me. So it worked out, and it was a fun time. I was there for about 15 months before I got rotated out of there.
Any crazy Alaska stories?
Probably not too crazy. I guess the best one is I broke my leg backcountry skiing, and I had to walk 1.5 miles out on a broken leg and dislocated thumb. So
nothing big happened. Nothing other than that.
Nothing. Yeah.
Fought off a grizzly bear with my
major,
ski.
Yeah. He smelled the weakness, but I was able to fend myself off.
It sounds like you could be season 2 of Landman, this Alaska edition.
I'm what not to do in that regard.
That kind of sounds
great.
like a lot of us landmen got hired. Well, I need 3 to 5 years experience, and then nothing happens, and you're like, okay, well, can you breathe? Yo, you're breathing, yes, and you want to come here to middle of nowhere, East Texas? You're hired.
Yep. Yeah.
And then you spend the next 15 months doing things you have no business doing, but you figure it out.
Yeah. You just can't beat the go get 'em attitude. And that's what a lane man is they're the guys and gals that are going to drive out to the middle of nowhere or go somewhere that they've never been just to try to learn and take an opportunity. And if you put in the work, the opportunities keep coming. So you're exactly right. It's kind of the definition of a layman in my mind. It's a businessman hustle at the oil and gas.
For sure. I guess that goes to anything, but I mean, it's a testament to your career. I mean, you've spent all of your career with one company, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was not by design. I thought I was going to end up back in Fort Worth because I'm from Arlington, and there was still a big oil and gas presence there. But Marathon just kept giving me opportunities and kept finding things that were interesting. And I swore that I was never going to live in Houston, and I've been in Houston for 12 years now.
Yeah. I think we're all like that.
Yeah. You go kicking and screaming, and then you realize it's actually a pretty nice place.
It's not too bad. Well, home's where you make it.
You get used to the mosquitoes.
Right. And the heat and the hurricanes, the traffic. Uninsured motorist, all those things.
Yeah. I'll take a hurricane over a tornado, and Houston heat is not nearly as bad as DFW heat. That feels that's
hot take.
Yeah. Oh, it's I would rather
Strong
take a
statement,
Houston summer than a yeah. None of us have ever done this, but I've been told that being in DFW is a lot like getting cremated in the middle of the summer. So it's a different type of heat.
Never been. I don't think anybody
drier heat for sure.
Nobody can really testify to that. Once they're cremated, it's kind of over.
Yeah, talking privileges are done at that point.
That's right. Well, it's like
great.
really a landman. You just have to be, if you want to stay in this business, whether you're in house or in the field, you just have to be open and never say no. You never know what the next opportunity is going to bring you. The people you might have met, through your career. We all come full circle. I mean, you and I've run across each other 10 years ago. And now we're doing a podcast, it's who would have thunk it, but that's what you really have to do, is you have to, and I tell this to my kids and you're going to do the same as, never be closed-minded to things, always be willing to put in the work, If you find something that excites you, do it. And you never know where it'll take you. And, the other advice is never be an asshole. So, if you just do those
That's rule
things,
number one.
rule number one to all landmen, don't be an asshole. But you never know where it'll take you, and you'll stay busy and you'll stay working. And I know my landman career has given me opportunities to see and experience things that I would have never imagined. And I'm sure yours the same. I mean, God, your resume speaks for itself. You've touched a lot, done a lot. I've seen back in the 2014s and 15s, you drilled 400 something wells in 2 years. I mean, that's insane.
That was back when we were running 23 rigs, and that was when I was a supervisor, and we were in Carnes, and we were getting after it. So our team was very busy. It was a lot of fun, and like I said, it was a great opportunity, and those were the longest hours I probably have worked in my whole career, but they were probably the most fulfilling because we were grinding it out, learning new stuff, putting together some town site development. So just lots of nuances on everything we did. And it was a blast. But yeah, you've got to be willing to put in the work and be open to explore. That's, as a kid, you always, just want to explore and tinker with everything. And that's where you've got to keep going throughout your career. Otherwise you'll get stagnant and it won't be fun. And once it's not fun, what's the point?
Exactly. I guess maybe
when were you most outside your comfort zone with all this? I mean, it sounds like a lot. When were you really the furthest?
My career or for
your career. I mean, we're talking about Alaska, 23 rigs. When were you like, I'm above, I'm barely hanging on here?
Pretty much the whole time.
And then I wrote a children's book, and it got worse.
I'm still.
Yeah. I remember when I had my first, when I was a mentor for the first intern, I basically gave him work that I had already done. So that way I knew what the answers were and we could let him touch everything. And that meant me doing twice as much work, but I was like, that's the best way to learn, for him to learn, is to do something. And then if he has a question, I know how to help him. Like, I don't have to spend 3 hours researching it. And then he's sitting there twiddling his thumbs in that time period. And I remember talking to my dad during that summer, and I was like, if I can just get through this summer, everything will calm down and life will be good. And my dad goes, Steve, I've been telling myself that for 30 years. And he was a landman. He was a landman too. And I think it just rings true. I've been uncomfortable at every turn of my career, whether it's, new states, new assets, or, I rotated out of the Eagle Ford and came back to the Eagle Ford. And the Eagle Ford, when I left in 2016, was completely different than the Eagle Ford I returned to in 2021.
Yeah.
We were talking about doing PSA wells, or production sharing agreement wells back then. And now every pad we have, unless it's on a large ranch, has at least one or four PSA wells, and they can touch up to 7 different units. And you are just getting, and you got to get people to sign up for it, right? So it is a huge lift and a new experience. So every turn I've kind of felt like I'm over my skis and I don't know what I'm doing, but that's the fun of it, is that you don't know and you're just trying to figure it out and make sure that you're keeping the car between the ditches.
I think that keeps you sharp too. If you're constantly looking over your shoulder, you're like, man, I better stay in the game. I better be focused here because something's wrong. I just don't know what. It's that constant.
It keeps you on your toes, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So do you cover PSAs in the baby's guide, or does there need to be like the toddler's guide or the adolescent's guide?
I think that's probably a pretty good idea, because this was just the concepts, and there's a lot of things that we don't touch on that we do that is our day to day. My friends were all joking. They're like, "When are you going to put the boondoggles and golf tournaments and all those things on there?" I was like, that's going to be the adults version.
A baby's guide to sandbagging your golf score.
Yeah.
A baby's guide to manipulating your handicap.
Yeah.
I think, did we just make
I don't want
ourselves,
to, I don't want to keep that tricked.
did we just make ourselves your advisory committee for your, for the
I
Baby's Guide to
guess.
Landmanning?
I think so. You're hired.
Yeah, deal. This is right up my alley. You don't know it, man. I've got a
Honestly,
treasure
it
trove
would
here.
be so helpful.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I think these guides would be super helpful, just because it can be so complicated, and if you don't know what you don't know, yeah, you should create a sequel. Have you already thought about that?
Yes. So
Okay.
everybody has, not everybody, but quite a few people are like, what's the next one? And so I was joking, and I was like, "I'll maybe try to do one for geology." And so I actually put pen to paper, and I've got an outline, but it's not ready to go. I haven't played with the AI. That's going to be, the artwork is going to be even harder than what we've got here. But yeah, so people have said do a series, and so I'm working on it. It's just I'm stepping more out of my comfort zone than what I probably should.
Well, when you finish that series, like, it'll calm down.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as you can get that series out, things will just smooth out.
Yeah, yeah.
You'll be able to relax and just kind of coast through the rest of your career. No big deal.
Yeah.
By that point, my daughter will be a teenager, and I'll just be scared about everything she's doing instead of what's going on in my career.
Yeah. Well, you'll be more
Yeah.
scared about what everybody else is doing with the
Yeah,
daughter, and say, "Oh
exactly.
God, sending my child out into the world with these crazies." Mercy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, by then you also have your own
That's
YouTube
great.
channel, and you'll have a children's TV series on Nickelodeon. This is just the beginning. The Landman business is in your
this is the
past at this
beginning.
point, man.
I like where your head's at. You got to diversify a little bit.
Well, tell me about it. That's the life of a field landman. It's like, how can I be a landman tomorrow? Let me count the ways of how a landman can work. You better go do it.
It's ever changing, right?
Oh gosh.
I
Yeah.
mean, from when you started to today is probably a night and day change of how the business is run.
Oh, and the things a landman can do. I mean, God, we spent a ton of time on this podcast alone just trying to highlight and educate but the field landman community and the in-house, the company side landman community on what's out there and what these things are and what these concepts are. I would have never thought it. But it's important. I mean, there aren't a ton of landmen getting into the business, especially on the field side over the last 4, 5, 6, 8 years. But if you open your eyes, to what opportunities are out there and what can a landman do, there's just so much out there that this skill set is transferable. So I got all kinds of ideas for, the edition 3 and 4 and 5 or volume 2, 3, 4, and 5. We can just go for days, man.
There we go. Let's get it rolling.
I love it. Man, well, how can people find this book? I mean, it's on Amazon. Is that the best place to get it?
On Amazon. It's the only place to get it. I was looking at different publishers, and they had a service, and I wanted it to be a one click. You click on the book and say buy now, and not have a chance to rethink your purchase. So I went with Amazon, and that's where it's at. So yeah, if you type in on Amazon Landman or my name, Steve Virant, it'll pull up the book.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes for listeners.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And we'll get some orders out there. I think we should pass this out to all friends and family of fellow landmen.
Sure.
Yeah, I bought several copies, and I'm shamelessly plugging them as people say they're expecting, like, oh,
have I got something for you?
Yes.
Don't worry about that baby list that you have online. I've got something even better.
I got something that's really meaningful.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, you got to restart.
Yeah.
You got to start recruiting early, and also we're going to start
Exactly.
lobbying. We're going to lobby really hard for you. Okay, Steve, we got to get you a booth at NAPE. Okay,
Yes.
we got to get you. You got to have a NAPE booth. Maybe you can come to the Dudley party. We're going to set you up in the corner. You can sign some autographs, make some old fashions.
Yes.
We're going to get you there, man. We're going to sell 1 million copies.
There we go. Yeah, we sell 1 million copies. I don't have to worry about my next steps on the careers. I can call it a day.
Yeah. You'll have to start becoming a writer full time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
we throw those numbers out. We're sitting large and in charge.
All right.
Yeah.
We're going to do it.
Well, listeners, if you are expecting, someone who's expecting in the industry, if there's a kid's birthday that's coming up, if someone's starting a job in the industry, this is the perfect book. So go ahead and click in the show notes and purchase the book. We'd love to support Steve and everything he's doing.
You bet.
So, man, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. This has been a lot of fun. It's great catching up, and nice to meet you as well.
Yeah.
All right, Steve. Thanks a bunch, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, take care.
Enjoyed today's topic? Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Learn more at dudley-land.com. See you next episode.